여러분 안녕하세요. Hi everyone. Please let me know if you can hear me. 제 말 들리시나요? 제 말 들리세요? 들리면 live chat 코멘트에 알려주세요. Please let me know if you guys can hear me. 아이고. 어디 갔어? 대찬님 안녕하세요. So nice to see you again, 대찬님. Thank you for joining the class. 와주셔서 감사합니다. 그리고 싸면님 안녕하세요. 태민님이시다. 태민님 안녕하세요. 7 a.m. here. Currently traveling. Okay. I see. Okay, 좋아요. Good for you. I'm happy to hear that you are traveling. 7시인데, 아침 7시인데도 일찍 이렇게 조인하셨네요. You joined even while traveling. Thank you so much. 카밀라님, 캐서린님. 혁재는 나의 달. 혁재 is my moon. 혁재가 혹시 누구예요? K-pop 스타인가요? 수자님 안녕하세요. 나나님 안녕하세요. 셀레나님, 구은옥님, 졸리님, 타니카님, 탈리아님 모두 안녕하세요. Thank you so much for joining. Did you guys have the chance to check out the 70 super common Korean sentences video? I was actually quite surprised because, it was getting, like a lot of views and watch time and everything. And I was quite shocked at first because I did not expect it to receive such positive feedback. So thank you guys. Thank you. And I'm really glad, it was helpful to some degree. So I hope you are making use of that video. In a good way. 네. 좋아요. 그 다음에 싸면님 어떻게 지내세요? 그럭저럭 잘 지내고 있어요. Good evening. 안녕하세요. 필리핀에서 오셨구나. 안녕하세요. 슈즈의 은혁. 그분의 본명, 실명. 은혁's real name, right? Maybe you're talking about 은혁's real name. I didn't know that. 오. 사바님 안녕하세요. 세바스찬님 안녕하세요. 여러분 미안해요. I'm sorry, guys. It started again. It says here that because of the internet connection, 잠깐만요. The live stream got interrupted. Not sure why that's happening. But I hope it's back on. Sorry. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys see the screen? 래깅이 좀 있어요? 래깅이 좀 있구나. 근데 you guys are still here, right? Okay, you guys are still here. I thought it was it's me. It's mine. It's mine, guys, actually. Sorry about that. Sorry about the technical issues that happened in between. But with that said, let's get started, guys. Let's get started. So I have written some of the things that would be helpful for you guys to note in advance. Like, for example, this class could be quite challenging to follow for like absolute beginners or low beginners who have just finished learning the alphabet and have no, like zero knowledge on how Korean sentences work. Then it could be a bit difficult to follow, but you're welcome to stay if you like to take a peek into Korean grammar and pick up a few words. And also, you can download the same worksheet that I will be using in this class with you guys in the description box. There's a link in the description box, so feel free to bring it. 그러면 일단 let's start with part 1. Part 1부터 시작을 해봅시다. 시작을 해볼게요. I'm sure you would have noticed that in the sentences, 만, the particle 만 was used quite often. For example, 한 입만 마셔도 돼요. 한 모금만 마셔도 돼요. 사진 한 장만 찍어줄 수 있어요. And so on. So we're going to learn various usages of 만. So the first and foremost, the primary usage of 만 is only. 만 is a particle that means only. So if you want to say only noun, you can say noun 만. So for example, if you want to say, I only had lunch, so particles are always placed next to, after a noun, right? So you can say, 저는 lunch, 점심만, right? 점심만, only, noun, only 점심만 먹었어요. 이렇게 할 수 있어요. So when it means only, when you mean only, you can put stress on the particle phrase, that noun-man phrase. So you can say, 저는 점심만 먹었어요. You stress that part. 점심만 먹었어요. And you clearly indicate that you used 만 to mean only, right? Or you can also say, 점심만 먹었어요. So putting emphasis on 만 only. 점심만 먹었어요. To emphasize that 점심 is the only thing you had. Not 아침, not breakfast, not 저녁, not dinner, right? So that's the primary usage of 만. 그리고 the second usage, this is actually quite common, guys. So 만 is often used in a request. And it can have a subtle implication of, I'm not trying to ask for too much. And it adds a tone of more of a courtesy to the request. So, for example, when somebody asks you, 사진 한 장만 찍어주실 수 있나요? 사진 한 장만 찍어주실 수 있나요? So 사진 means photo, right? And 한 장 means one. And 장 is a counter for like paper or pieces of paper. So photo, they used to be in paper form, right? So we still use 장 to count photos, even if it's like electronic. Even if it's photos taken by your phone, we still use 장. So 1 plus counter. 그리고 찍다. When you say 사진을 찍다, it means to take a photo. 사진을 찍다. So when you ask, 사진 한 장만 찍어줄 수 있나요? This could sound like this person is asking for only one 사진, right? Only one photo. But actually, it could also be that it's just a politer request and indicate that you're not trying to ask for too much. So in this case, you don't have to stress 한 장만. You can just even out the tone when saying the sentence. So 사진 한 장만, 사진 한 장만. You don't have to say 사진 한 장만. 사진 한 장만 찍어주실 수 있나요? And this is a polite way to ask someone to take your photo. 사진 한 장만 찍어주실 수 있나요? 일단은 let's check some of your comments, guys. 잠깐만요. Let's see if there's any questions. For example, I want to say that's why I'm the only one here. 네, 그렇게 쓸 수 있어요. 네, 그래서 저만 있어요. 네, 그렇게 쓸 수 있어요. In this case, in your sentence, your 만 would mean only, right? Only. 아무튼, so 만 can also be used to make your request sound politer. 만. 그래서 또 예를 들어서 뭐 조금만 천천히 얘기해 주시겠어요? Please speak a little slower, right? And this person also used 조금만 to make the request sound politer. And you would have also heard 조금만 기다려주세요 many cases, right? 조금만 기다려주세요. Please wait a bit. 조금만 기다려주세요. 그리고 잠시만요 as well. I'm sure this is a very, familiar phrase for you guys. So 잠시만요 literally means just a moment. So it can be used for asking for someone to excuse you, right? Excuse me, 잠시만요. And it literally means just a moment. Like, please be patient for just a moment, right? 잠시만요. So you'll see 만 in a lot of polite requests. 그리고 그 다음에 and also another common usage of 만 is after, when it means after. And in this case, it's often used in the form of 만에. And here it means after a certain period of time. Actually, let me write it here for you guys. After a certain period of time since you last did something. So for example, if you say 친구를 1년 만에 만났어요. It literally means I met my friend after a year. And the details that it entails, it rhymes. The details that it entails is that you met your friend after a year since you last saw her. So you can also take it as I met my friend for the first time in a year. So it's been like a year since I last met my friend. 이런 뜻이 또 있어요. 만에. 그리고 뭐 하루 만에 다 봤어요. This was also one of the expressions. One of the sentences used in the video. 하루 만에 다 봤어요. It literally means I watched them all after a day. I watched them all after a day. So it means you finished it. You finished watching it after a day you started watching it. So it basically means you watch it all in a day. So like you can take it as something like I binge watched it in a day. Like 하루 만에 다 봤어요. 하루 만에 다 봤어요. 그리고 오랜만이에요. It was long time no see, right? Long time no see. 아이고 뭐야? 왜 한글이 쳐지지? Long time no see. And what it literally translates to is 오랜. So 오랜 from 오랜만이에요. Comes from 오래, which means a long time. So it literally means after, right? After a long time it is. It is after a long time, literally. It is after a long time. So it means it's after a long time since you last saw each other, right? It's the first time in a long time that we see each other. So 오랜만이에요. Long time no see. 그렇게 됩니다. 오케이, 그러면은 다음 거로 넘어갈게요. This is also one of the common questions that I get from many learners. 어도 되다 versus 으면 되다. 일단은 어도 되다는요. So literally, if you break it down literally, this phrase means so 어도 comes from the sentence connector 그래도, right? So it means like even if, although, like but still. So 어도 되다 means even if I do this, basically, it is okay. Right? But however, rather than getting caught up in the literal breakdown, it's actually better to just accept the expression as it is. So, 어도 되다, you can take it as an expression for permission. So it could be giving permission to another person. In that case, it could be used in declarative sentence, right? Giving permission. And if it's used in a question, like 해도 돼요? Then it would be asking permission, right? 그래서 예를 들어서 if you want to ask someone, can I do this? You can say 해도 돼요? It's an expression of permission. Can I do it? Is it okay if I do it? 해도 돼요? 그리고 한 입만 먹어도 돼요? So literally just a bite. Can I eat it? So it's like saying, can I have a bite? You're asking permission. Because it's someone else's food, and obviously, it's courtesy to ask permission first if you can, if that person can share their food with you. So 어도 돼요 can be used here. 한 모금만 먹어도 돼요? 모금 is a counter for like the sip that you take from water or beverage. So 한 모금만 먹어도 돼요? Can I have a sip? 이렇게 됩니다. 모금. But on the other hand, guys, 으면 되다 is not necessarily, it's not at all about permission. It's more about instruction, like asking for instruction. So it could be in declarative sentence, it would be giving instruction, right? Declarative sentence. 여기 있다. 이거 입어봐도 돼요? 그렇죠. 이거 입어봐도 돼요? Can I try this on? 맞아요. Perfect sentence. 타니카님. But anyways, 으면 되다 when it's used in a declarative sentence, it's giving instruction, or it could also be seen as giving clarification on what needs to be done to achieve a desired result, whatever that is. 그리고 when it's in a question, of course, it's asking for instruction. Like, 그래서 예를 들어서 let's take a look at the example. So when you say 커피를 어떻게 나오게 해요? 커피를 어떻게 나오게 해요? It means how do I make the coffee to 나오다, come out. And this person is asking for instruction, right? So you can answer. 그 버튼을 누르면 돼요. 누르면 돼요. You're giving instruction. If you would like to achieve a desired result, which is making the coffee come out in this case, you can press that button. That's what you need to do. 그 버튼을 누르면 돼요. 이렇게 말할 수 있고, 그다음에 let's say someone says 한국어를 잘하고 싶어요. I want to speak Korean fluently, right? 근데 for even if this person didn't ask for instruction directly, you assume that this person wants this result, which is being good at Korean, right? So you can give them the instruction like this. 많이 연습하면 돼요. 많이 연습하면 돼요. 많이 연습하다. Practice a lot, right? So giving instruction for how you can become fluent in Korean. 많이 연습하면 돼요. 많이 연습하면 돼요. You can practice a lot. 연습하면 돼요. 그리고 one last example. 이거 어떻게 하면 돼요? 이거 어떻게 하면 돼요? In this part, this person is asking for instruction. 이거 어떻게 하면 돼요? How do I do this, right? How do I do this? By ending the sentence with 면 돼요. I mean the question with 면 돼요. This person is asking for instruction or what needs to be done to make this work. And this person tells person A, 줄을 당기세요. 줄을 당기세요. Just grab and pull. Actually, grab and pull the string would be 잡아당기세요. So I'll go with this verb, 잡아당기세요. 줄을 잡아당기세요. Or you can also answer with instruction ending. 당기면 돼요. 줄을 잡아당기면 돼요. 이렇게 할 수 있어요. So that's the difference between 으면 되다 and 아어도 되다, guys. And let's move on to part 3. Part 3 is about all the ways to ask favors in Korean. So the reason why I included this part next to, right after part 2, is because a lot of learners actually mistake or misuse 도 되다 for asking favors. So for example, when a student wants me to make a video, they would go, 이 영상 만들어도 돼요? 선생님, 이 영상 만들어도 돼요? Their original intention is to ask favors, like, can you make this video? But this sentence actually means, can I make a video? Can I make a video? It does not mean, it's permission basically, and it does not mean, can you make a video? It's not asking favor, right? 그래서 can you make a video? 아닙니다. favor 아닙니다. 아니에요. So that's why I've included part 3, asking favors, so we could learn other expressions that you can use to ask favors in Korean. And when asking favors, or even when thanking someone or asking favors, we, without exception, we use this auxiliary verb, 주다. 주다 auxiliary verb. So basically, you conjugate the verb first, the action verb first, and then add 주다, this auxiliary verb. And its implication is that this verb that is attached to this auxiliary verb is an action done out of kindness or for the sake of other people. So when you're asking a favor, you're basically asking the other person to do something for you, right? For you. You is the other person in the perspective of the person that you're asking, right? 그래서 when asking favor, we always use 주다. Otherwise, it sounds like a command rather than favor. 그래서 there are a couple of expressions I brought here. So for favors, so the first one is verb 주세요. 주세요. So simply add verb 주다 verb and end it with 세유 ending. And it means please do something. 그리고 잠깐만요. Let's actually separate these three and this one. 잠깐, we'll come back to 주시면 안 돼요. This one later. 일단은 주세요 먼저 볼게요. So these are the three most common forms you can use to ask favors, and these three are listed in order of politeness level. So the first one is actually the least polite one among these three, and the third one actually sounds the politest. But that doesn't mean that doesn't make any of these expressions rude. It's just that you can try using this one, like, okay, let's separate these two as well. This one and these two in different situations. So for the first one, let's start with 주세요. For the first one, try to use it when it's expected of the other person to provide the service for you. 잠깐만, use it when it's expected of the other person to provide the service for you. So for example, when you're ordering at a coffee shop, the cashiers are expected to take your orders, right? That's what they're hired to do. It's their job. So in those cases, you can use 주세요. And also you can also use it for like little, like small favors that don't seem to require, a lot of trouble, such as like, please unmute yourself, right? 음소거 해제해주세요. Do you guys remember this expression? Please unmute yourself. Unmuting yourself is, not a big deal, right? So you can ask it with 주세요, or like, oh, please tell me, 말해주세요. 이럴 때도 주세요 쓸 수 있어요. 그리고 but otherwise, try to stick to one of these two when asking favors, and at the same time, you want to sound polite, because if you sound polite, it'll also raise your chance from them to actually grant you a favor, right? So I recommend using these two favors, especially if you think this is the kind of favor that you think might, trouble the other person in some way. 그럴 때는 주실 수 있어요? 주시겠어요? 쓰면 되고요. 그리고 what about 줄래요? 이것 좀 해줄래요? 이것 좀 해주실래요? 이거는 you can also use this form. 주세요? 줄래요? 근데요, I also need to explain some cultural aspect regarding this. So you wouldn't use this 줄래요 to a stranger, to someone that you're not very well acquainted with, because it could sound slightly, rude, just because it kind of sounds like. So for example, when you're in a company, this sounds like a senior colleague might use to ask you something, for like favor, ask a favor of you, but not the other way around. 그래서 I think what's bothering about the Korean language in general is that there are so many different levels of politeness level that it gets really frustrating. Even when you're trying to teach it to the learners. 근데 일단은 the safest way, especially if you're talking to someone that you're not like personally acquainted with or like super close to, just use this one, guys. 주실 수 있어요? or 해주시겠어요? 아이고. 해주시겠어요? 어디 갔어? I missed it. 여기 있다. 그리고 you can use 줄래 in 반말, in casual form to your friends, close friends. It sounds better if it's used in 반말. Because if you're using 반말 with someone, that already implies that you two are still close. So 그렇게 될 수 있습니다. 그래서 아무튼 주실 수 있어요? Or you can also interchangeably use 있어요 with 있나요, right? 있나요, because 나요 is the question ending. Right? 그래서 뭐뭐 해주실 수 있어요? 해주실 수 있나요? That's how you can say it. 그 다음에 그리고 the last one that I brought, 뭐뭐 해주시면 안 돼요? 이거는요, 약간 sounds a bit more like a little bit more like begging, more desperate. 그래서 뭐 예를 들어서 maybe let's say you're a grandparent and maybe your grandchildren might use this form to beg you for a toy. So 뭐 할머니, grandma, 장난감 means toy. 장난감 사주시면 안 돼요? Can you please buy me a toy? 약간 it sounds kind of like that. Kind of has a more desperate feeling to it. So 할머니, 장난감 사주시면 안 돼요? 이렇게 됩니다. 그 다음에 let's move on to part 4, guys. Passive verbs. So there were a couple of sentences where passive verbs are used, and let's briefly go over the general form of passive verbs. And I actually have like a whole playlist of Korean passive verbs on my channel. So if you'd like to learn more in depth about passive verbs, then feel free to check my channel, the playlist on my channel. But just for like summary overview of passive verbs, let's look at some of the structure. So the first one, how to make an active verb into passive verb. So actually, regarding the term active verb versus passive verbs, just in case some of you are not familiar with this like grammatical term, I'll just briefly go over it. So active verbs are the kind of verbs that involves action. You do the action. So for example, you sleep, you do it, you study, you yell, you smile, you any kind of actions that you can think of. They're action verbs, active verbs, whereas passive verbs are to be done, to be yelled at, to be what else? To be wait, why can I not think of any words? Oh, that's true. To be seen, to be anything actually. To be one more. To be typed, and so on. Right? These are the things. These are the type of verbs that are called passive verbs. You are done on to. The subject is the subject does not perform the action, but that subject is performed on to. Right? To be felt, right? And to be felt, and this is also part of passive verbs. And to be eaten, 그렇죠. To be eaten is also part of passive verbs. Visible은 이제 this would be in English. This would be more considered an adjective, right? 아무튼, so in Korean, guys, so in English, you can simply add the be verb plus PP form of the verb to make an action verb into passive forms. But in Korean, it works differently, of course, because it's different languages. So how you can make an active verb into a passive verb is by adding one of these. Actually, I think there was one more, but I cannot think of that one more right now, but it's not that important for now. So you can either add 이, 니, he, ki to the active verb stem. So for example, 보다 means to see, and if you want to make it into a passive verb, then you can add 보, the stem of the action verb, and 이, and then 다. So 보이다 is the base form of a verb that means to be seen. 보이다. So if you want to conjugate it in present tense, past tense, it would be 보여요, 보였어요, 보일 거예요, right? These are the conjugations. 그리고 for 끊다, which means to cut. So for 끊다, you can use it for like 줄을 끊다, to cut the strings. Or you can also use it for like speech, talking. So to cut someone's talking is to interrupt, right? While somebody talks. 그리고 you can also use it for 인터넷을 끊다. To, to disconnect the internet, right? 인터넷을 끊다. And if you want to make it into a passive verb, you can simply add this key character. So 끊기다. 끊기다 is the base form of a verb that means to be cut. And this would be conjugated as 끊겨요, 끊겼어요, 뭐 끊길 거예요. 그렇죠? 그리고 as for 듣다, 듣다. So 듣다, I'm sure you guys know, it's an irregular verb. So even its conversion into passive form also involves some sort of irregular form. So basically, 듣 becomes 들. So 듣 changes its form to 들, and then you add 리. 들리다. So this means to be heard. 들리다. And its conjugation would be 들려요, 들렸어요, 들릴 거예요. 그렇죠? 들려요. 그래서 I'm sure you guys remember 보여요? The questions 보여요 and 들려요 from the video, right? So 보여요 is how Koreans ask, can you see something or someone? Can you see me? Can you see it? Can you see them? Right? 그리고 들려요? Can you hear? Can you hear me? Can you hear it? Can you hear them? So we don't actually say we don't literally translate. Like we don't say 볼 수 있어요? Or 들을 수 있어요? So 볼 수 있어요? 들을 수 있어요? They literally mean can you see it? Can you see it? Or can you hear it? But it's asking for something different other than can you see something in the moment or can you hear something in the moment, like what you're supposed to see or what you're supposed to hear. It's asking for something different, which is like can you see it? Like, are you allowed to see it? Or 잠깐만요. This is something that has to be covered in 을 수 있다 and 을 수 없다 lesson, which I already do have on my website, so you can check the lesson for details. But what 볼 수 있어요 basically is asking is, are you allowed? Like, are you circumstantially possible to see it, or physically possible to see something? Or 들을 수 있어요, the same thing. Are you circumstantially or physically possible to hear something? It's not asking about whether someone can hear what they're supposed to hear. So that's different. It's different way how two languages like work linguistically, like their perspective on like seeing things, expressing things are different, right? That's pretty natural in like many other languages, the differences in perspective. Anyways, so 보여요? Can you see me? 들려요? Can you hear me? So whenever I start the live stream, I always ask you guys, 들려요? Right? 들려요? 여러분 들려요? And I'm basically asking you guys if you can hear me. 들려요? And also like 화면 보여요? 화면 보여요? Can you see the screen? 화면 보여요. And you guys can answer 뭐 네 보여요 or 네 들려요 if you can really hear it. 그 다음에 어디 갔지? Before we move on to the negation of passive verbs, actually, maybe we could bring the negation right now, right? 일단 negation 먼저 해볼게요, 여러분. So we have just covered 보여요, right? And 들려요. And if you want to say you cannot see something, you must say 안 보여요 and 안 들려요. Not 못 보여요, 못 들려요. Because 보여요 and 들려요, like we learned, are passive verbs. And when negating passive verbs, you can never, ever use it with 못. 그래서 못 들려요, 못 보여요 안 되고 항상 안 보여요. So literally, it is not seen, right? It is not seen and it is not heard. That's how you express I can't hear you or I can't see you. 그러면 여러분, 그러면 잠깐만요. I can see her. 안 들려요. This would be 안 들려요. And this would be 안 보여요. 여러분, 그러면은 what would be the difference between 안 보여요 and 못 봐요? 여기서 못 also means can't, guys. Can't. And it can indicate two things, either lack of skills or abilities. So when we say, I can't speak English or I can't speak another language, we always say 못해요, right? So for example, if you can't speak English, you can say 영어 못해요. If you can't speak Arabic, 아랍어 못해요. If you can't speak Japanese, 일본어 못해요, because language is considered a skill, right? So for lack of skills, you can also 못. And just like 을 수 없다, It can also be used to indicate something that's circumstantially or physically not possible. So when indicating such cases, you can interchangeably use 못 and 을 수 없다. 을 수 없다. 그래서 아무튼 if you say 못 봐요, it could depend on the context, but it could either mean that you lack the skill to see something, right? For example, you lack the skill to see something. It's not about like being blind, guys. Being blind, it's expressed differently, which we will get to soon. Actually, no. Sorry, I'm confusing things. But actually, 못 봐요 can also mean to be blind. 못 봐요 if it means physically not possible. Physically not possible. 그래서 나는 못 봐요 can mean you are not allowed to watch, or it could be that you lack the skill to watch. And it could also mean that you're blind. You're physically not possible to see, which means you don't have sight, right? So visually impaired people. It could also mean visually impaired. So for example, let's say you have a blind cat. You can say 제 고양이가 앞을 못 봐요. 제 고양이가 앞을 못 봐요. So you can just say 못 봐요. 근데 이제 adding 앞을 못 봐요 is actually more common for visually impaired. So 앞을 못 봐요 literally means they cannot see the front. So what's in front of them. So it means they're visually impaired. Visually impaired. 그 다음에 못 보여요는 this is a grammatically ill sentence because 보이다 is a passive verb, right? Passive verb cannot be negated with 못. But I think 키스님 meant to write 못 봐요. Maybe it's just a typo. 못 봐요. If you're meaning 못 봐요, it would also be blind. 아무튼 그렇고 그래서 if you say 오늘은 바빠서 영화를 못 봐요. In this context, this 못 봐요 would be that you're circumstantially it's not possible. I cannot watch a movie because I'm busy. 그리고 제 친구는 앞을 못 봐요. Like I just taught you guys. It means this person is visually impaired. 앞을 못 봐요. 그리고 이거는 어때요? 여러분 이건 어때요? 오늘 공부해야 돼서 I have to study. So music 못 들어요. So music 못 들어요. What would this mean, guys? It's circumstantially not possible for me to listen to music, right? Because I need to study. 그리고 이 강아지는 못 들어요. 이 강아지, this dog cannot hear as in this person. I mean, this dog is visually, not visually, deaf, right? Deaf. Deaf. 그 형용사 뭐죠? Not visual, but is it auditory? Auditorily impaired라고 하나요? I forgot the English word. Another euphemism for deaf. There was this word. I forgot. Is it auditory impairment? 맞나요, 여러분? 청력. 뭐였지? I need to know. I need to remember that word. Please, if you guys can think of anything, please let me know in the comment. But in the meantime, that's the difference between 안 들려요, 못 들어요, and 안 보여요 versus 못 봐요. Orally impaired라고 하나요? 이 단어는 처음 보네. Hearing impairment라고 하는 게 좀 일반적인가? 아무튼 그렇죠. Thank you guys. Thank you for letting me know. Hearing loss가 맞겠네요. Hearing loss. It's definitely familiar to me. Hearing loss가 맞겠네요. Hearing impairment. 이런 게 있습니다. 오케이. 그 다음에 okay, so let's move on to the next one, guys. Next part. If you want to say it looks or sounds, adjective. So for example, it looks natural. She looks busy, right? 그리고 it looks natural, it looks awkward. So how do you say this thing in Korean? So let's start with it looks adjective. For something looks adjective, you can add the adjective 보여요. So you can add 보이다. And you can use 보이다 in the form of auxiliary verb, meaning it's attached after another verb, but in this case, it's adjective. So for example, if you want to say it looks natural, you can say so 자연스럽다. 자연스럽다 means to be natural. 자연 means nature. So 자연스럽다 literally means it has a quality of being like a nature. So it means to be natural. So if you want to say it looks natural, you can say 자연스러워. You first conjugate it in present tense. 자연스러워 보여요. 자연스러워 보여요. 그리고 another way you can say it looks adjective is by adding 게 to the adjective and say 뭐뭐하게 보여요. So 자연스러워 보여요. 자연스럽게 보여요. 둘 다 맞아요. Both are correct. Both are the correct ways to say you're natural. I mean, it looks natural. 맛있어 보여요. 맛있어 보여요. 그렇죠. It looks delicious. 그렇죠. You can use the 맛있다 adjective and say 맛있어 보여요. It looks delicious. 맛있어 보여요. 맞습니다. 그리고 if you want to say it looks awkward is 어색하다. 아니면 you can also say 부자연스럽다. 이거 부자연스럽다, which literally means no, it is not. This 부 is a Sino-Korean word that means not. It is not natural. 부자연스럽다. So you can say either 어색해 보여요, right? Or 어색하게 보여요. Or 부자연스러워 보여요. And 부자연스럽게 보여요. 이렇게 쓸 수 있어요. So that's how you can express it looks adjective in Korean. And for it sounds adjective, it's a bit different from 보이다. So unlike it looks adjective, for it sounds adjective, we don't say adjective 들려요. We only say 뭐뭐하게 들려요. adjective 하게 들려요. 그래서 if you want to say something sounds natural, you cannot say 자연스러워 들려요. This is actually incorrect. You should say 자연스럽게 들려요. 그리고 for it sounds awkward as well. 어색해 들려요 is incorrect. 어색하게 들려요 is correct. So if you want to ask your teacher if your sentence sounds natural, you can ask 제 문장이 my sentence 자연스럽게 들려요? You can ask it like this. Does my sentence sound natural? 이렇게 됩니다. 그리고 재미있어 보여요. 그렇죠. 재미있어 보여요. It looks fun, right? It looks fun. If you want to say it sounds fun, you can say 재미있게 들려요. Right? 재미있게 들려요. It sounds fun. Or 재미있어 보여요. It looks fun. 이렇게 할 수 있습니다. Okay, 그 다음에 let's move on to part 6, guys. Part 6. So I'm sure you guys have noticed that I'm late for class is expressed as 수업에 늦었어요. 빌리 하나님, thank you for pointing it out. Oh, yes, I totally forgot about it. 완전히 까먹고 있었어요. 맞아요. We skipped the second part of passive verb. There you go. So I skipped this part. Sorry, guys. Let's go back to it. So another form of changing an active verb into a passive verb is by replacing 하다 with 되다. So actually 하다 itself, 하다 alone, is a verb that means to do, and 되다 means to become. But in the perspective of passive and active verbs, you can also consider 되다 as the passive version of 하다. So for example, 이해하다 means to understand, right? 이해하다. 이해되다 means to be understood. So, you can see that 이해하다 is converted into passive verb by replacing it with 되다. 준비하다, 준비되다, right? To be prepared. 그리고 음소거하다 becomes 음소거되다, to be muted. So for muted, if you want to specify what exactly is muted, for example, your speaker is muted, you can say 스피커. 스피커를 음소거하다. Or if you want to say someone's microphone is muted, you can say 마이크를 음소거하다. 이렇게 쓸 수 있어요. 그래서 if you want to tell the other person that their mic is muted, then you can say 마이크가 음소거 됐어요. 음소거 됐어요. So 되다, this time 되다 is used because it's passive verb. You're muted. So 마이크가 음소거 됐어요인데 I will come back to this part where it's conjugated in past tense. I will explain again why it's conjugated in past tense, not present tense, like how it's expressed in English, right? It's muted. Like in English, it's expressed with the present tense form, right? But in Korean, it's conjugated in past tense. And we'll look at the reason why in the next part. But before we get to that, let's 잠깐만요. Let's look at was to ask. I was meaning to write ways to ask. So ways to ask, do you understand? Like, do you understand this concept? Or do you understand what I just said? 이럴 때 you can either ask 이해돼요 using 이해되다. Passive form of to be understood, right? So it literally means is it understood? Is it understood? 이해돼요? Or you can also conjugate it in past tense as actually it's very common for passive verbs to be conjugated in past tense in Korean, and we will also look at the reasons. I'll explain the reasons why in the next part, like I mentioned before. And you can also say 이해했어요 using the active verb 이해하다 to understand. So this would be the literal translation of like did you understand? 잠깐만요. Actually, it should be did you understand? Sorry for all the typos, guys. I will make sure to have the corrected file up again. But ways to ask, did you understand? You can say 이해돼요 or 이해됐어요, 이해했어요. 근데 here, you might be, and for the answer too as well, yes, I understand. You can say either 이해돼요, 이해됐어요, or 이해했어요. So after your teachers explain something to you and you want to say, oh, I understand. Like they ask you first, 이해돼요? Then you can either answer 이해돼요 or 이해됐어요 or 이해했어요. 근데 you might be wondering why not 이해해요, 이해해요 using the present conjugation of 이해하다, the active verb. And this is because 이해해요는요, it has a little bit of a different connotation in that it sounds more empathetic. So I'll give you an example here. So let's say someone tells you 요즘 일이 많아서 너무 힘들어요. I have a lot of work these days, so like I'm having a tough time. And then to say like, oh, I understand that feeling. Oh, I understand you. You can say in response, 이해해요, 이해해요. So this one doesn't really indicate that you understood like what someone has explained, like the concept or what someone has said, but it's more like emotions, like empathy. You understand as in being empathetic. So 이해해요, 이해해요. That's the difference between those two. 그 다음에 여러분, let's finally move on to the where is it? Part 6. So I left off at this part. So I'm late for class. I'm sure you guys remember that this was expressed as 수업에 늦었어요. So I'm sure some of you might be wondering, why 늦었어요? Why 늦었어요? And not 늦어요? Because in English, it's conjugated in present tense, right? I'm late. I am late. Am is clearly present tense, but why is it expressed in past tense in Korean? So you'll actually come across quite a few sentences in Korean where an adjective is conjugated in past tense, even though the equivalent expression in English would be in present tense. So before I explain the details, guys, I also recommend not focusing too much on remembering the specifics that I explained to you guys. And if you have to remember anything, just the expression itself, all right? Not the specifics that I mentioned. So while I'll provide the explanation, you don't have to stress too much if you don't fully get it. Just accepting how Korean speakers approach things linguistically, are different from English speakers' perspective. That would be enough, all right? So with that said, let me get started. So in the sentence, I'm late in Korean, the verb 늦다 is conjugated to 늦었다. Actually, 늦다 is an adjective. 늦다 is an adjective. And this might seem counterintuitive to English speakers, but in Korean, the perspective behind this construction is that when you say 늦었어요, you are implying that the state of becoming late has already happened by the time you're speaking. So let me, here's what I mean by that. So for example, let's say your class starts at 10 a.m., and it takes 30 minutes for you to get to school. But now it's already 9:50 a.m. So you were practically late starting 30 minutes ago because you need 30 minutes. Like if you leave less than 30 minutes before the class starts, then you're late, right? So being late started 30 minutes ago. So since that state of being late has already occurred, it's expressed in past tense. 그리고 the same thing happens, like I said, for like some other expressions as well. So as for it's empty, like something's empty, it works in a similar way. So 비다 is an adjective that means to be empty. And when we say, as you might have guessed it, for it's empty, we say 비었어요, not 비어요. Because of the same reason, right? The fact that something is now in an empty state, the empty state likely happened some time ago, right? Someone might have drunk all the water, maybe spilled it, or for whatever reason that caused it to be empty. That state started in the past, right? That's why it's conjugated in past tense. And as for it's full, so 차다 means for something to be full. So not to be confused with 배부르다, guys, which we will get to soon. It's different from 배부르다. 배부르다 is your stomach being full, and 차다 is for like something, like your cup, like gas being full. So 차다, this one is also conjugated in past tense. So you say 찼어요 for it's full for the same reason. But like I said, guys, I suggest not trying too hard to remember like this specific perspective to everything. And it's simply because it doesn't apply to everything. So for example, like I said, I'm full, as in you're full after eating a lot. 이것도 맞아요. Are you crazy? This is also expressed in past tense, 맞아요. Because the state of going crazy happened in the past, and that state is continuing up until now, right? So that's why it's conjugated in past tense. This is actually a great example, 태민님. But anyways, I'm full. I'm full는요. So for your stomach being full, we use 배부르다. And this one, you don't say 배불렀어요. So you can say 배불렀어요 when you're expressing that you were feeling full in the past. But when you want to say you're currently full, it's actually conjugated in present tense. 배불러요. So don't try to like apply this quote unquote rule to everything, guys, right? Just remembering the phrase for each sentence is enough, guys. Okay? Not complicate you guys with the details. 배불러요. 배가 불러요. 그리고 마르코님이 in what context would one use to this is a great question actually. I was expecting someone to ask this. And if you say 늦어요, let's say you say 늦어요. 이거는 future tense. Interestingly, 늦어요 is conjugated in present tense, but it actually indicates future tense. So for example, I'll give you an example. So in this case, it would be interchangeable with 늦을 거예요. So for example, simple sentences. Let's go with simple sentences. 늦잠 자면 늦어요. 늦잠 자면 늦어요. If you 늦잠 자다. So 늦잠을 자다 means to sleep, a late sleep. So it's like saying you sleep in, right? If you sleep in, you will be late. 늦잠 자면 늦어요. 이렇게. 그래서 it's a very interesting part about some of the Korean adjectives, right? When it's conjugated in past tense, it actually indicates your present state. And when it's conjugated in present tense, it indicates future state. So that's pretty interesting, right? 아무튼 배 불러요. Where were we? So 배 불러요 라고 하면 되고. So same applies to words like open and ready. So in the case of words like ready and open, they're also conjugated in past tense. But here, it's the passive verbs that are used instead of adjectives. 이럴 때는, 이 경우에는 passive verbs예요. So you can use 열리다 for it's open. And for it's ready, you can use 준비되다 and conjugate it in past tense. So for it's open, you can say 열렸어요. Because it indicates that something has already been opened by someone in the past, and now it's in an open state. So you can say 열렸어요. 열렸어요. 그리고 for it's ready yet, for the same logic that the state of being ready has already been achieved, right? Before the time of speaking this, before the time of saying this. So you can say 준비됐어요. 준비됐어요. But like I said, guys, just remembering that Korean people say 준비됐어요 for it's ready or I'm ready is enough than trying to remember all the details and apply these rules to like everything, like every adjective you see. Okay? All right. It's ready. I'm ready. 준비됐어요. I'm ready. 그래서 이제 수업하기 전에, before I start the class, sometimes I ask you guys if you're ready, and then I ask you guys 준비됐어요? 준비됐어요? And that means are you ready? Are you ready? All right. 그 다음에 let's move on to the next one. This is where a lot of grammar concepts will be explained, including a lot of grammar. Okay, so this is the part that I find one of the parts about Korean grammar that I find extremely difficult to explain. So I have my lesson sheet ready here. So I will have to kind of refer to this while explaining to you guys, because otherwise I could get confused myself. So yeah, this 있다 grammar is also one of those grammar expressions in Korean that are quite counterintuitive to native English speakers, just because there's no like fixed words or phrase that is 100% equivalent to this one. So just like I said, guys, just you don't need to like try to remember the grammar details in depth, but just understanding the general idea that it conveys, and when in general it's used is fine enough. So this concept is actually quite similar to what I explained in part 3, right? Being conjugated in past tense, because something has happened already in the past and now that state continues, right? It's similar concept basically. So 잠깐만요. I forgot to mention this. So for verb 있다, guys, verb 있다, this can only be used with intransitive verbs. Intransitive verbs. Let's go over this term, intransitive verb, just in case you're unfamiliar with it. So intransitive verb refers to verbs that cannot take an object in a sentence. So for example, verbs like sit. You cannot sit something. You just independently sit, right? Stand. you cannot stand some. So stand has various meanings in English, but when stand means like you're standing up, right, on your 2 feet, you cannot say I stand something, right? Standing is an individual action. So these kinds of sentences are, this kind of verbs are intransitive verbs. It has no object to transmit the effect of the verb. So that's what an intransitive verb is. But anyways, for a or 있다, you can only combine it with intransitive verbs. And part of the intransitive verbs is passive verbs. Passive verbs it cannot have an object because they are being done onto instead of they doing something onto someone, right? 그래서 예를 들어서 So let's say you want to say, I'm sitting. I'm sitting in Korean. So if I'm sitting in the perspective of Korean language, if I'm sitting, it means that I've already performed. Let me write it to you guys so that you guys don't get confused. That I've already performed the action of sitting in the past. And now I'm in the state of being seated. At least in Korean, this is how it's perceived. So you would say, for I'm sitting, Korean people would normally say, 저는 앉아 있어요, to describe the state, to describe your state of sitting. And this would be different from 저는 앉고 있어요. 저는 앉고 있어요. So 고 있어요 is the present tense present progressive, right? Present progressive means that the action is still being performed and the result hasn't come out yet, right? So when you say 저는 앉고 있어요, it implies that you are not yet seated. You're not yet on the chair or your seat yet. Like your 엉덩이, like your buttock is in the process of going down onto the chair. Like your knee is in the process of bending, but you're not yet seated in a position, right? So these two mean different things, two different things. So right now, I'm sitting on a chair. So I can say 저는 앉아 있어요. 앉아 있어요. 이렇게 말합니다. 그리고 the same works for I'm standing. You would say 서 있어요. 아이고. 서 있어요. This is to describe your state of standing. So you're staying standing, right? That has been the case for quite some time, right? So 서 있어요. 서 있어요. 그리고 the same goes for you are muted. You're muted. So you've already pressed mute button. You've already pressed mute, right? That happened in the past. And now, after completing that action, you are in a muted state. So I'm muted. Or I'm muted or you're muted. 그리고 you can also say 음소거 됐어요 for like I'm muted or you're muted. You can also, 아 있다 is often interchangeably used with past tense. Past tense. And that's what I meant when I said a lot of passive verbs are conjugated in past tense. Because 있다 is basically, the completed action and you are staying in that state after the completed action, right? So it's actually interchangeable. Many cases, these two are interchangeable. 음소거 되어 있어요. 음소거 됐어요. 근데 that being said, it's not always the case. It's not always the case. So for example, for I'm sitting, we would normally say 저는 앉아 있어요, not 저는 앉았어요. 그러니까 저는 앉아 있어요. You can say this when you want to describe your past action of sitting, but normally when you're currently sat down, like on a chair, you're sitting on a chair, you will say 저는 앉아 있어요. So this being interchangeable, these two 있어요 and past tense being interchangeable is not always the case. 그래서 so while you could try to understand this as a rule, it's also a good approach to just, remembering the phrase itself as it's commonly used by native speakers. That's actually the best because, You don't have to try to remember all the like complicated details, right? You can just understand the details. You can understand the fact that there's a reason behind it, like there's a different perspective behind it, but you don't necessarily have to remember it, guys. 그 다음에 키아라님, what about I am talking? I am talking. Talking is an active action, right? It's not an intransitive verb or a passive verb. So you can say 말하고 있어요. I am talking. You can say 말하고 있어요. You can just use the present tense conjugate. What am I saying? What is this called? Present progressive for that. Because when you say I am talking, it means you're not finished talking. You're still in the process of talking. In that case, you can use present progressive. Present progressive. 그렇습니다. 그리고 last one, guys. The door is open and the door is closed. 이거 한번 해볼까요? So we use the passive verb 열리다. You can use the passive verb 열리다, which means to be opened. And for closed, you can say to be closed. So the door is open. You can say 문이. There are two ways to say it. You can either say 문이 열려 있어요, right? Using 있다 grammar. Because somebody has opened the door, it's a completed action in the past, and as a result of that, the state of the door being open is continuing. So 문이 열려 있어요. Or 그렇죠. 문이 열렸습니다. When it comes to intransitive verb or passive verbs, normally the noun is marked with 이가 particle because they cannot take an object, right? So passive verbs cannot take an object. So 문이 열렸습니다. or 문이 열려 있어요. 라고 할 수 있고요. 어디 갔어? 열렸어요. 그리고 the door is closed. The door is closed would be 문이, it would be either 문이 닫혀 있어요 or 문이 닫혔어요 in past tense. 네, 둘 다 맞습니다. Because anyway, you're talking about the past completed action and the state that is now in as a result of that. So 문이 닫혀 있어요. 문이 닫혔어요. 문이 열려 있어요. 문이 열렸어요. Both are fine. 둘 다 맞습니다. Okay. 여러분, 일단은 that's all that I have prepared before our question time. Finally, 잠깐만요. 많은 분들이 을을 써주시는데 문이입니다. 문이 simply because passive verbs or intransitive verbs cannot take an object. 그래서 they mostly don't follow 을래. As for this, if you'd like to learn more specifically about passive verbs and like the particles that go with them, you can check my playlist on passive verbs. I have a really, really detailed lessons listed in that playlist, so I hope you find that helpful. 그리고 그렇죠. 문이 열려 있어요. 열려 있어요. Okay. 그러면 여러분, question time 가질까요? Is there any other questions that you have about the 70 sentences in the video that I haven't mentioned in this class? Interesting. 있어요? Has an equivalent. 진짜요? 근데 열려. I'm sure you meant 열려 있어요, right? 열려 있어요. 그렇죠. 열려 있어요. 그리고 닫혀 있어요. 그리고 앉아 있어요. 그래요. 포르투기스에 있구나. That's helpful then. That's definitely useful then, Jacqueline. That's definitely a benefit for you. It would definitely be beneficial when you're trying to grasp the concept of this grammar phrase. 그 다음에 James님, not a question, but I say this has been brilliant and informative. Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm really glad. 네. I'm really glad. 좋아요. I'm really, really happy. Thank you, James님, for saying that. 그렇게 말해주셔서 감사합니다. 그 다음에 for the passive verb stem ed, he가, is there a rule to apply them? 그러니까 it depends on the stem, what the stem ends with or what the stem looks like. So you could say that a rule, but there is a general rule of thumb that seems common, but there are also exceptions because of the irregular verbs. So I would say, in summary, whether you add either ed, he, ka to a certain active verb, all depends on, like not all depends on, but mainly depends on what the stem looks like, or what character it ends with. 하재 have a specific meaning. I'm not sure what you mean by 하재 타니카님. Could you maybe check if it's some sort of typo? 네, 카밀라님 괜찮아요. You can ask later in the comment section when you replay this, because I'm sure there were a lot of things to digest. So maybe you guys need some, time before you start asking questions. So I might, not rush it. Maybe it's a good idea for me to end the live class. What do you guys think? 잘 설명해 주셔서 감사합니다. 토키얼님도 잘 들어주셔서 수업에 참여해 주셔서 감사합니다. But this is my first time joining. I'm studying in Korea from March till August. I'm so excited. You have been the biggest help for me. I'm so happy, Cameron님. And really cute dog. 강아지가 너무 귀엽네요. And I wish you the best of luck with your studies in March. You must be excited. It's such an exciting experience to study abroad, right? So I'm sure you must be super excited. March till August. 잠깐만요. Actually, you are here already. Sorry, I misread that. Okay. So it's almost time for you to go back home because it's August, right? I hope it's been an enjoyable stay here and hope you learned so many things in Korea, including the language, the culture, the people. I'm happy for you. 그다음에 릴리님 안녕하세요. Can you make 연희님, can you make a video about how to write 한글? I low-key hate my handwriting. 근데 솔직히 저도, to be honest, my handwriting isn't that pretty either. But I will think about this. 어디 갔어? Where's the comment? This one. I will think about this. Thank you for suggesting. I think this would be, quite a fun lesson. Jacqueline, I'm glad it was helpful. I'm glad I could help. Just found your channel. It's amazing since I learned Korean a couple of weeks ago. I'll go to Seoul next month. Can you suggest how to start? You mean how to start learning Korean? You can start learning with like the alphabet first, like what sounds there are in Korean. And then you can move on to some of the basic structure that Korean sentences generally follow. And then you can maybe get into some of the specifics of the grammar, because it's really helpful in the long run before you really, start getting immersed, like with listening and reading and stuff. So yeah, I recommend that kind of step. And I'll try making a video, on how to effectively get started with Korean. I've been meaning to create that video for a long time, but for some reason I never really took the time to like really get into it. But 한번 시간을 내볼게요. Next year. Okay. 미안해요. Reading so many comments like at once makes me so confused at sometimes. But next year, you're coming to Korea next year. I'm so happy for you. You must be super excited. 주방 and 부엌. 주방은요, 약간, 그러니까 when you're talking about your kitchen at home, 주로 부엌을 써요. 부엌 is like is kitchen. Okay, let me put it this way. Kitchen in general, including the ones at home, ones in your house. 그리고 주방은요, 약간 so basically 부엌은요, 부엌 can include more things compared to 주방. So in 주방, so 부엌 is the place you cook, you wash dishes, and there's like fridge in 부엌, but 주방 is more like a kitchen as in a cooking place. 네. So you can think of 부엌 as in a broader term compared to 주방. And 주방 is mostly focused on cooking place. So you will likely hear a lot of people referring to like kitchens in the restaurant as 주방, because in the restaurant, there's like, they need the cooking place, right? The place just for cooking. So that's what you can call 주방. How can you say stand in line? Like wait in line? 그런 거 말하시는 건가요? You can say stand in line, 줄 서세요 하시면 돼요. 줄 서세요 using honorific verb, or 줄 서요 in 존댓말, polite form, or 줄 서 in casual form, 반말. So you can either say 줄 서요, or 줄 서세요. Listed in the order of politeness level. 의욕이 너무 과했던 걸까? 뭐야, 왜 이렇게, 잠깐만, 왜 이러지? I'm losing control of my mouse. 의욕이 너무 과했던 걸까? 내 착각이었던 걸까? 혹시 이거 저기예요? Is it part of the, like, lyrics of the song? Because it sounds like it. It sounds very, like, how do you say, like, retrospective? Like self-reflective. So I feel like this must be from some music or poetry. But 의욕이 너무 과했던 걸까? 착각이 너무 과했던 걸까? This person is basically 착각이었던 걸까? This is, I'm pretty sure you were talking about this one. 착각이었던 걸까? So this person is wondering if this was the case. Like, was it that my 의욕, 그러니까 의욕이 이게 you could say drive for 의욕. Like 의욕. 잠깐만요, 여러분. Let me look up the dictionary for the best English word for 의욕. 의욕. It could be moral인가? 영어로 잠깐만. 어학사전. 의욕이 will, desire, drive. Okay. In Naver Dictionary, it says will, desire, drive. So drive was my drive. Like will to do something, like too much, 너무 과하다, or was it my mistake? 이런 뜻입니다, 키아라님. I hope that helped. 그리고 나중에 versus 있다가, 나중에는요, 나중에 sounds like farther later. 나중에, so you can consider it a broader later. 그리고, so later for anything. So it could be later in the day, later this week, later in the future even. But 이따가는요, 주로 later today예요. Later today. So when you say 이따가 전화할게, 이따가 전화할게, what this person means for sure is that I will call you later today. It's just that I'm not certain how much later, but it is within later today. So that's the difference between 나중에 and 이가. 그리고 how to form adverbs. There are many ways. The most common way is by adding 게 to an adjective. So for example, 즐겁다 means to be joyful. 즐겁게 means joyfully, but not always. It's not always this way. For example, some adverbs end with he, like 자세히, in detail, or like 꼼꼼히, like meticulously. So there are many ways. 근데 most common way is either adding 게 or he. 다음에 I have a video on this. 트라님, I have a video on the difference between 기 and then 것. You can type verbs normalization, Miss Vicky, on YouTube, and I hope that it'll show my video in the first part of the result page. So I definitely have that one in my video, so in my channel. So please check that one. Could you prepare? 각각 각자. 네. Thank you. 잠깐만요. Let me actually write this down. This is actually such a good idea. Each in Korean. 각각. Thank you for the suggestion, Jacqueline님. 오늘 고양이가 안 보여요. 아, 맞아요. 고양이가 오늘은 밖에서 자고 있어요. She's sleeping, I think, in the living room maybe, but she's definitely not in the room where I work. 네, not in this room. 고양이. I think 선생님 explains so well that everyone gets expression as this is such a great topic. Oh, 기스님, I'm really glad you joined, actually. Oh, that you joined, actually, most of my live classes. Oh, which I'm really thankful for because it's always so nice to have like as many students participating in class, in live classes. So I appreciate that. Okay, 그러면 여러분, 잠깐만, do we still have more questions? How to say, let me see. Do you have a live class every week? Do I have a live class every week? I hope so. 네. I hope to be able to have live classes every week, but if not, I will try to have it every other week. 그래서 let's see. 일단은 여러분, Phil님, I actually do not have not created a video on this topic. Like I'm sure you're referring to like nium nominalization form, right? nium I don't have it yet. 네, 아직은 없는데 한번 I will consider this to be one of the future topics. So thank you. 아, 진짜요? It's from the recent vlog of Jin. Jin said that? That's such a wow. 아, 진짜요? 진이 그렇게 진지했구나. Jin is such a serious person. 오, in a good way, very good way. 오, 그랬구나. 오, thank you for letting me know. 아무튼 I got late because I was in school. 괜찮아요. You can always watch the playback. 그 다음에 알아보기, 자세히 알아보기. 그러니까 이게 그걸 거예요. It's probably the translation for like 뭐였지? 영어로? See more. So it literally means 자세히 알아보기. Literally means look into it in more detail. So it's something that probably appears like next to a video, maybe to make you click on it, or maybe to read the rest of the comment, like see more function in YouTube in English, right? 그런 거일 거예요. I'm looking for relative clauses in Korean. So in Korean, this grammar is actually called verbs modifier form rather than relative clause, because relative clause is something that only exists, something that exists in English but not in Korean. So you can look up noun modifying verbs, Miss Vicky on YouTube, and it'll show you the results. And you can click on my lesson. 꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위로 고양이가 걸어 다닙니다. Please break it down. 오, 꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위로 고양이가 걸어 다닙니다. 이거 please break it down. 오케이, 여러분 어떻게 생각해요? 일단은 좋아요. Actually, 여러분, this would be the last question that I'll be answering, and then I will wrap up the live class here. 근데 what do you guys think? Now, this is actually quite fun because it's a hilarious meme. Have you heard of this song? This internet, how do you say, like internet meme song? Like 꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위로 고양이가 걸어 다닙니다. Like it's part of like TikTok challenge music, I think, that's been on trend these days. 근데 사바님 would like to know the detailed meaning of it. So actually, 꽁꽁 얼어붙다. This 꽁꽁 is the onomatopoeia word. Onomatopoeia word for like frozen state. Frozen state. 꽁꽁, 꽁꽁 for frozen state. 그리고 이제 얼다는요, 여러분. 얼다 means to for something to freeze. So it's an intransitive verb. Is it an intransitive verb? 뭐뭐를 Oh, it is an intransitive verb. Sorry. Yes. 얼다 means for something to freeze. And when you say 얼다, when you add or put that auxiliary verb to 얼다, what it indicates is that this is the result of something getting frozen. 그러니까 붓다 하면요. So 붓다, when it's an independent verb, it means it has many things. It means for something to stick. 잠깐만요. 붓다. What's the best word for 붓다 in English? Stick. Let's see. Stick, adhere to, cling 이런 뜻이에요. 그래서 the ice or the lake or water is so frozen, like so closely frozen basically that it stuck together. It clings together. So 얼어붙다 is like it's so closely frozen. It's so it's frozen hard basically. Frozen hard. Frozen hard. 그래서 꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위로 이제 한강 is Han River, the name of the river, popular river in Seoul. 그래서 한강 that, so this is what the Lord of Hypersonic Name meant by relative clause. So this is actually the modifier form of a verb, the past tense modifier form of a verb. So 한강, Han River, that was or that is frozen hard. 꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강, Han River that's frozen hard. 위로, above the Han River that's frozen hard. above, 위로. 고양이가 걸어 다닙니다. I'm sure you guys know what 고양이 is, especially if you guys are my students, right? Because you know how much I love 고양이. So 고양이 means cat or cat. 고양이가, a cat is 걸어 다니다. So 걷다, 걸어 is the present tense form of 걷다, which means to walk. And 걸어 다니다 means to walk around. So I'm sure you guys can guess the entire meaning. A cat is walking around above the Han River that's frozen hard. 맞아요. That's solidly frozen together. So that's what this meme song means. All right. So 사바님, I hope that answered your question. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this answer. And is it dumb that I want to learn Korean so I can... 아니요? I don't think it's dumb. I love new jeans as well. They're so adorable. And like, I really like the kind of, the new type of concept that they're pursuing as a K-pop group. Well, which is very refreshing to see in the industry. And I love their music. 네, their music is not too much. They're mostly ballads, but they're not childish. You know what I mean? So I love it. I love new jeans as well. Anyways, guys, I will wrap up the class here. And actually, guys, my cat is here. 제 고양이가 여기 왔어요. Maybe I could show you guys. 잠깐만요. Maybe I could show you 효순이 and then for the last time, and then I could end this session. 잠깐만요. How do I... 이건가? 됐다. 보이나요? 여기? 고양이. 잠깐만. Like, I have the camera on, but where... 어디 갔어? 이건가? 아이폰 카메라. 이거? 여기 있다. 여러분, 고양이가 왔어요. 보이시나요? 꽁꽁 얼어붙은 책상 위로 효순이가 걸어 다닙니다. 효순이가 걸어 다니네요. 아이고, 보셨나요? 그냥 끌게요. 그냥 끌게요. 다시 갔다. 아무튼 여러분, 선생님 정말 감사합니다. Thank you guys as well for joining the class. 다음에 또 봐요. 네, 다음에 또 봐요, 여러분. 좋은 주말 보내세요. 네, 키스님도 좋은 주말 보내세요. Female or male? So the name, so 순 in the name is usually for female. So 효순이, her name is 효순이, which indicates that she's a female cat. 안 보였어요? 방금? Were you guys able to see my cat just now? 아니에요? 안 보여요? 뭐지? I'm pretty positive that I put it up on screen. 모르겠다. Maybe it doesn't matter that much. But anyways, what matters is that you guys learned something from this video and you guys had, a useful and helpful and amusing time. And I will see you guys in the next one. 다음 시간에 봐요. 그쵸. 보이죠? You can see it, right? 우리 반 친구, classmate. 효순이 is your classmate. There's probably like a lot of, gap, like delay in the stream. That's probably why you guys are seeing her like right now in the comment. You saw her. The delay is pretty long, I guess. I want to fix that. I'm not sure what the problem is. My internet connection is fine. Maybe it's the program, but I'll look into it. 아무튼 여러분, 이제 갈게요, 여러분. 자, 저는 이제 자러 갈게요. I'll have a good night's sleep. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. If it's nighttime there, have a great night. And 네, 다음에 또 봐요. 안녕. Take care.